Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
it's recording.
Okay.
So first I want to say thank you for your service in the military.
Oh, you're welcome. It was the best thing I did. I have to tell you, I spent 33 plus years, almost 34 years in the military. I started my career when I entered St. John's Law School in 1970 at St. John's ROTC. You know
Wow.
about the ROTC, it's the Reserve Officer Training Corps, Army ROTC. And I entered I started the program in the summer of 1970. I had to go to basic training at Fort Knox, Kentucky, where I did my 8-week basic training. And when I finished my basic training, it was really July and August, most of July and August of that summer. I started St. John's Law School in September, and I was enrolled in the ROTC program. And I eventually, Shelby was commissioned as a second lieutenant from the St. John's ROTC program at Fort Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania on August 4th, 1972. I had to go to the ROTC advanced camp at Fort Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania that summer. And when I completed that camp, I was commissioned as a second lieutenant. So that was my commissioning date, Shelby. August 4th, 1972. Proud day for me.
Yes. Is it okay if you tell me your life before you went to the service?
Sure, Shelby. I had I was a Queens boy. I grew up in Queens. I went to St. Michael's Grammar School in Flushing, which I attended grades 1 through 8. And then when in grammar school, I was very active as an altar boy with St. Michael's Parish. And I played, all the sports. I loved baseball. I loved basketball, loved football, whatever I could play, I played. And then when I graduated, I was a year younger than most of my classmates. I was 12. I 12 years old when I graduated from grammar school. And I went to Monsignor McClancy High School in Jackson Heights, Queens, which I spent 4 years there. Again, I was a year younger than my class, so it was a little bit difficult. I had a stutter when I was I developed in my end of my grammar school days and into high school. But I worked on that, trying to get that under control. I succeeded, but high school wasn't so easy for me. I had to work hard. The Brothers of the Sacred Heart at Monsignor McClancy taught me. They taught me perseverance. I tell you that. I persevered through a lot of different things when they weren't going all that well for me, but I stuck with it. I graduated at 16, and as soon as I turned 16, the summer before, I always liked to work. I got my working papers, Shelby, and I turned 16 on August 5th, 1964, and I went to work in a supermarket, Smiling Foods in Flushing, and I did that all that summer, and I worked during my senior year of high school. I would work on weekends, Friday nights and Saturdays at the supermarket. And my senior year, I was the editor-in-chief of my high school yearbook. Very proud of that. The McClancy, and it was an interesting year to be the president, to be the editor-in-chief of the yearbook, because it was the 64-65 New York World's Fair, New York City World's Fair at Flushing Meadow, which was a short walk from where I grew up in Flushing. The apartment that I grew up in was on Sanford Avenue. It was about 4 blocks from where the World's Fair was. So I did that. I went to the fair a lot, took pictures with the brother advisor that we had from McClancy, Brother Joel, who helped me and the other students who worked on the yearbook put it together. And then I decided that I would go to college, and I had narrowed my choices down to St. John's University, where I eventually went, and Fordham University, which I was strongly considering. But in the spring of 1965, my grandfather, who was very close to me, Tom Principe, he was a World War I veteran, Shelby. who had
Wow.
fought in World War One and had been wounded in World War One. He was an immigrant from Italy who came here when he was 7 years old. And he was very close to me growing up. He was my best friend, actually. My grandfather, I'm named after him. His name was Thomas ROTC. So my mom named me after my grandfather. So Tom is a big family name in the family. And my uncle, my mother's brother, is also named Tom. So we had three Toms living under the same roof at one
That's
time.
amazing.
It was something. But I went with my grandfather. How I made the decision between St. John's and Fordham. We went to see St. John's play in the final of the NIT National Invitation basketball tournament. I was a big basketball fan. I couldn't make my high school team, but I would cover them for the school newspaper, like you're doing today. And I was a sports reporter, so I covered the basketball games, and I liked college basketball, and I liked St. John's in particular. And that year, St. John's played Villanova in the final of the NIT, and they were a big underdog, but they won the game. And I remember the score, 55-51. My grandfather and I went to the old Madison Square Garden to watch it together. And that game, the spirit in the garden was so big, so enthusiastic that convinced me to go to St. John's. And then I went to St. John's. I enrolled there in 1965, September. I graduated in 1969. In college, I had a big interest in theater. I was very involved with the chapel players at St. John's. It was a test for me to join that organization because I still had my stammer. I still, had trouble getting over words, and I would get very tense and nervous, and sometimes I couldn't get the words out. Very frustrating when you have that, Shelby. So I decided in my sophomore year of college, I was with a friend of mine in the cafeteria at St. John's, and I saw that there was a casting call for a play, Mother Courage by Bertolt Brecht they were doing. And I told my friend Mike McDermott, I'm going to cast for that play. I probably won't get the part, but it's something I always wanted to do. Well, lo and behold, Shelby, I casted for the play. I got a part in the play, and it started a very, a successful theater experience for me at St. John's. I was in 10 productions, and in the 9th production, I had the lead in my senior year in a very difficult play. Harold Pinter was a British playwright, had written a play called The Birthday Party. It was a real demanding test, particularly for me, because I had more than half of the lines in the play. It was a very long play, 3 acts, and it was a great thing to do for me, and that gave me a lot of confidence. And by then, I had gotten over the stammer, and I was able to move on. I went to the University of Virginia for a year. I had a chance to go down there and study political science and American theory, American political theory. And after a year there, I decided to come back to St. John's and enroll in law school. But before I could do that, because it was the draft lottery had just started in 1969, and I was in the first draft lottery. I had a number which was fairly low. I think it was 52. So there was a good chance I would be drafted unless I was able to go into like an ROTC program. And since I had been accepted at St. John's Law School and I wanted to get on with my legal career, I did that. I enrolled in ROTC, went that summer of 1970, my basic training to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and enrolled in the law school in September of 1970. Graduated, and then I graduated in 1973, went on active duty in the Army, and in January of 1974, I came off active duty and had to take the New York State bar exam, Shelby, and had an offer to be an assistant district attorney in Queens County, contingent on me passing the New York State bar exam. So I started working as a criminal law investigator in a district attorney's office in January 1974. In March of 74, I took the New York State bar exam. I passed it and was admitted to practice in New York in August of 1974. So this August, next month, I'll be admitted attorney in New York, practicing for 48 years.
Wow,
So
that's awesome.
that's kind of a long answer, but I wanted to like get you up to speed quickly. But that's
Mm.
kind of like the broad outline of some of the things I did. But go ahead, Shelby.
Sorry. What was your family like?
My family, like, well, I'm an only child, so I have no brothers or sisters. Um, my grandfather, I tell you, was in World War I. My father, Anthony Principe, was in the Coast Guard in World War II. So he had a military background. And my mom was she was a housewife, but a very big political leader in the community. She ran for district leader in Flushing, Queens. Did that for two years, 1966 to 1968. But then it was becoming such a big job that she didn't want to do it anymore. But she stayed active in local politics and helped out with the local Democratic Party. I decided that when I entered St. John's Law School, that the job I wanted to do most was probably be an assistant district attorney and in my home county of Queens. So I was very fortunate that worked out for me. And I was able to work as an assistant district attorney in Queens. I spent almost 6 years there, Shelby. I learned an awful lot. I learned how to try cases, how to speak on my feet, how to cross-examine witnesses. I got pretty good at it. And by the time I tried some major homicide cases when I was there, some of the cases got a lot of publicity. I had the district attorney, the first DA who hired me, Nicholas Ferraro, entrusted me with some important cases. And then John Santucci, who the second district attorney, he promoted me, that I served under. He promoted me to become the deputy chief of the Supreme Court Trial Bureau, Shelby, when I left. So when in 1979, I left the district attorney's office and went to work for a civil firm. That firm was a defense medical malpractice general negligence firm called Morris, Duffy, Ivone, and Jensen. And how I got there, I've been very fortunate. I'm a big believer in, if you're out there doing things, Shelby, people are going to see you, they're going to notice you. And I was trying a murder case in May of 1979 over, in fact, the jury deliberated over the Memorial Day weekend in 79. But before the jury got the case, this other attorney, his name was Dick Jensen, who became a very close friend of mine. He had a medical malpractice case going on in the courtroom right across the hall from me while I was trying this murder case in Queens. And he would come in, he was interested in the trial, would come in and watch me try the case. And during as the trial was nearing its end, he offered me a chance to go down and interview with his firm, saying my firm needs a trial lawyer. You look like you know what you're doing in the courtroom. Would you like to come down for an interview? I wasn't looking, but I said, sure. I didn't know if I wanted to be a career prosecutor, Shelby. And I felt I had been there over 5.5 years by now. It probably was time, if I was going to do something else, to go ahead. And that's how I transitioned into the civil side. I became a defense lawyer at this firm, Morris, Duffy, Ivone, and Jensen. It was a great firm. I stayed there until I met my current partner. I had 3 cases against Tom Moore at Kramer, Duluth, Livingston, and Moore, where he was representing brain damaged children, and I was representing doctors or hospitals on the other side. So we had opposed each other in court. And we become fairly friendly during the trials. There was a friendship relationship between us. He got me involved in running. I ran a couple of marathons in the late 80s. I started running the New York City Marathon. And when we ran the New York City Marathon together in 1987 and 1988, and I guess you learn a lot about someone when you run 26 miles with them and train with them. So he offered me a job to come to his firm, Shelby. And that's how I came to Kramer, Duluth, Livingston, and Moore in April of 1989, where I've been ever since. So I've been here 33 years at the firm.
Wow.
So I go places and I stay, Shelby.
Okay,
But during this, I was doing my military career also. While I was practicing law, I was in the first the Army Reserve for a couple of years. Then I transferred over. I was a company commander. This is kind of important. Company commander of a maintenance company at Fort Totten. I took over the company in 1975. When I had come off active duty, I had a 6-year reserve obligation. So I was assigned to Fort Totten in Queens. And as luck would have it, I was in a transportation battalion. Then I was sent down to take over for a company. They relieved the company commander. He wasn't doing a very good job, I guess. So the battalion commander, which is the next highest level up, said, Principe, you're going to go down and you're going to take over the 237th maintenance company. And they were just getting ready to go to their annual training at Fort Drum. So I had to get up to speed very quickly. I did. I got them up to Fort Drum. We took a convoy up there. I was a convoy commander. We had a good, successful 2-week annual training tour in the field. I learned the job pretty quickly. And then I brought them back and got them through their IG inspection, which was a big inspection the Army does every other year. And they hadn't passed it in like 10 years. So they passed this IG inspection. So I was doing very well at that company. But an opportunity came, Shelby, in 1976 for me to transfer to the Judge Advocate General's Corps, which is the Army Legal Corps. And I think I have the symbol. Yes, this is the crest for the Judge Advocate General's Corps. It's you can see it was formed in 1775 in the Revolutionary War. General George Washington created the Judge Advocate General's Corps. The symbol is a wreath, as you can see, a pen and a quill pen and a sword. We were the legal advisors to the commanders and during wars, as well as during peacetime. And General George Washington felt that they had to have a Judge Advocate General's Corps. So this was my branch insignia when I transferred over to the Judge Advocate General's Corps and the New York Army National Guard in 1976. And I proudly, wore this for the next 30 years till I retired in 2006. I retired in July of 2006, and it was a 33-year career. It was very satisfying, Shelby. Just a very satisfying time for me. But go ahead. You ask your next question. I'll keep going if you let me.
So I was just trying to see. Were you married before you left for the military?
I met my present wife in Irene, my wife Irene, we met in 1990. So I was in the military for a while. I was commissioned in 1972. So I had been in a while. So 1990, I met my wife Irene. I was married for a short time before that, in 1978, and divorced in 1982. So I was even in the military before then, and then after 1982, I was single for another 10 years almost. We got married in 1992. And I was very active with the military then. I'd gone on to do various projects for the JAG Corps, various state active duty assignments. It was a big prison guard strike in New York in 1979, state prison guard strike. And I was in the district attorney's office at the time, Shelby, and the New York Army National Guard was activated to run the prisons. We had to assist the supervisors help run the prisons, the state prisons. So I was trying a case. It's a funny story in the district attorney's office, and it was a robbery case. And I get the call when the jury is out deliberating that the Army National Guard, the New York Army National Guard has been activated, and I have to report to Camp Smith right away because my assignment is Greenhaven Correctional Facility, upstate New York. That's a maximum security prison. So I said to my sergeant major, I said, I can't leave yet. I got a jury out, which is deliberating. I got to be here. So he said to me, well, as soon as that jury comes back, Principe, you better pack your gear and get up to Camp Smith. It was a Friday. So I remember that, saying, God, I hope we get a verdict, because one way or the other, I got to stay until the jury comes in. So about 8 o'clock that night, the jury came back, Shelby, and they acquitted the defendant. So I said to myself, good, I lost the case. This is funny. I got in my car. I packed my duffel bag. I drove up to Camp Smith, which was about a two and a half hour ride up to Smith. And as soon as I got there, I was giving my marching orders to go report right to Greenhaven Correctional Facility, which was about another hour away from there. From Camp Smith was in Peekskill. So I went up there. I got to the prison. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. I rolled in, and I wound up spending the night in Greenhaven Correctional Facility in jail, while the defendant who I had tried early in the day, he got to go home. But the prosecutor, I went to jail. So it was kind of a funny story to it, which is really kind of unique. But I've enjoyed all my activations. You asked me, I know, about had I been deployed for the Gulf War, and what happened in the Gulf War. My unit was activated for it. I was in the 107th Infantry Brigade. We were activated for the Gulf War, but we wound up being like the headquarters where the troops were coming through, and then they left us. We had to get them ready for it. I had to do wills and powers of attorney and family health care plans for their families, but they needed me to stay here and do that and help process the people going. So we were going every weekend, nights during the week, getting troops ready to be deployed. And as it turned out, it ended very, very quickly. So some of the people got over, but most of them didn't. So that was a situation which was interesting. But again, because I was a JAG lawyer, I had a unique role in advising, and helping troops get ready, soldiers get ready to go. And they wanted every soldier that went over to have a will, Shelby, and every soldier to have a power of attorney made out, and a family health care plan. So they wanted all that done. So it was a busy time.
So they needed to have a will ready if they were going to die in the Gulf War?
Right. If they were a casualty over there, they would have the family would have had a will, how their money, how their health insurance, rather how their life insurance would have been distributed. If they were a single parent, who did they want to take custody of their child, even when they were away? Because there were a number of single parents involved in this. Not a big number, but it was significant enough that they all needed to have that spelled out. The Army didn't want anybody, family to suffer because somebody was sent overseas and did not come back, and there was no way of telling Shelby what their wishes were. So it became very important to me that I would go. We were up at Camp Smith. Camp Smith was the downstate headquarters for the New York Army National Guard. It's a big post in Peekskill. And I would get to the gym, Baker Hall it was called, at like 7:30 in the morning, and I would leave there 9 o'clock at night. It was, all day, other than to have lunch, which they brought in. We were eating meals ready to eat, MREs. I was going all the time on this, and the line of soldiers coming through, which were being processed, it just seemed to never end. But there weren't that many of us in the JAG Corps, small number, maybe 12 of us total throughout the state. So we had a big job to do. And I think we did it pretty well. And I got to like it very much. I got to meet a lot of soldiers, and I got to help people out with their problems. Some had, custody issue problems. They were concerned about their rent. They have to pay their rent if they were activated, and they weren't able to do it. Would they lose their apartment? Stuff like that. How about their jobs? But the New York State military law gives them protection, soldiers. So I was able to advise them of their rights, if necessary, write letters for them, and just, be a good listening ear for them. Lawyers have to listen and then act. And that's what I did. I did a lot of, Shelby.
Wow. So I was just trying to see, so why did you join the military?
Shelby, I was always a patriot. My grandfather served in World War I. He came to this country. He loved the country. He was very active with his American Legion post. And I always felt that there was, everybody had an obligation to do something for the country, service. So my life always seemed to be about service. I wanted to help, to do good. And the best place to do that, I thought, was in the military, because the military always goes to the aid, at least the U.S. military, of the underdog, the people in trouble. They go in to protect people. And I felt that the military would give me a chance to serve my country, to serve my state and my local community, and at the same time grow as a person. I got to become very proficient, in marksmanship, Shelby. When I was at basic training and in Fort Indiantown Gap, when I first went to basic training, I couldn't hit a thing with the M16 rifle, and the drill sergeant was watching me this one day on the range. He said, "Principe, you can't hit a thing." I said, I know, drill sergeant, I can't figure it out. He says, "I have a feeling you're shooting from the wrong side. Turn over and shoot left-handed instead of right-handed." Well, Shelby, I did that. And I quickly established myself as a pretty good shot, pretty good marksman. And I wound up having the second highest score in the company, which was about 160 soldiers, which was, for me, a kid from New York City, that was a pretty good accomplishment, because my company had soldiers from all over the country in there. So that was good. The reason I shot so poorly from the right side, even though I'm right-handed, I do everything right-handed, I couldn't close my left eye and open my right eye. I can't do that. I can close my right eye and open my left eye. My left eye is my dominant eye. For right-handers, most time your right eye is your dominant eye. But for me, it switched. And then I did well. So I found myself really liking what I was doing in the military. I liked the service. I liked the camaraderie. And I quickly realized that, I could be a good officer. I could lead. I knew how to lead. And I became a company commander when I was only a first lieutenant, which was, very unusual. Usually they're captains. I did a good job there. Got them through their annual training, got them through their IG inspection. And then when I became a JAG lawyer, I thrived there as well. And I eventually became the Judge Advocate General Corps officer, the JAG officer, for the 53rd Troop Command, Shelby, which is one of the two major, they call them MACOMs. There are two major MACOMs in New York State. The 42nd Division, which I had served in for many years, and the 53rd Troop Command. 42nd Infantry Division had the combat elements. The 53rd Troop Command had everybody else. So it was a good fit for me. I wound up getting promoted. I made all of my promotions, and my promotion to colonel, because it's very hard to get promoted to colonel. I was the Army. There was only 2 slots in New York State for a JAG colonel, and the Department of the Army DA selected me at a special board, and which had not happened in New York before that for a JAG officer. So I got DA selected for colonel. That was 06. That's the one rank below my retirement grade, which was Brigadier General. That's 07. But 06 is usually as high as you can go, which would be a great accomplishment. I considered it that way. And in 1996, I got promoted to Colonel, Shelby, and I served for 10 years until I retired as a colonel. And on the day I retired, Shelby, I got what's called a brevet promotion, meaning that I was promoted onto the retired list as a Brigadier General, which is a great honor. You don't get paid as a Brigadier General as a retired. My pay was as a colonel, but it was still a wonderful honor to go on the retired list as a Brigadier General. And when I retired, I was given the from the Army. I was awarded the Legion of Merit, which is probably the highest non-combat award you could receive from the Army, and that meant a great deal to me. It was like a testament to my 33-year career, and I received that. And in fact, Shelby, under my American flag here, you can might be able to see a little ribbon, a little red ribbon. It's more maybe maroon, but
Yeah, I
that
can
is
see it.
that is the Legion of Merit. I wear that on my lapel. The original medal is very beautiful. I have that in a box, in a display box in my in a cabinet in my dining room. But this I wear every day because it meant so much to me. You also see I wear my flag every day. Very much the patriot. And the third pin there is my St. John's Law School pin. That's my
I can
St.
see.
John's Law School pin, which I would not have be anywhere today were it not for St. John's and the chance they gave me to go to law school. Because like high school, law school was also very difficult for me. But I got through, I persevered, and I decided that they were going to have to drag me out of there before to make me not finish. Whatever it took, I was going to finish, and I did. And
Wow.
so that kept me going, Shelby.
Okay, which military branch were you assigned to?
Well, I was assigned, I was in the Army because I was an Army ROTC. And when I went to my to my branch school, they decided to send me, because I was in law school, I had graduated from law school, to the adjutant. I'm in a conference now. Could you call me later? Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry, should have told them.
That's okay.
I was in the Adjutant General's Corps. That is like the administrative arm for the Army. Okay, that was the administrative arm for the Army. And that was, I went on, there was a 12-week course, school you had to attend, which I did at Fort Benjamin Harrison, Indianapolis, Indiana. That was as soon as I graduated from law school in June of 1973. The week later, I had to report to Fort Benjamin Harrison to complete this course. And then they put me on active duty as soon as I finished that course down at Fort Benning, Georgia. I was assigned there, and until January. You had to do like a period of 6 months on active duty. And I did that for another 3 months. I was assigned to an MP company down at Fort Benning, Georgia, which is the home of the infantry, the Army's infantry school. And then when that was completed, I completed that just before Christmas of '73. I came back and I had the offer to go work in the district attorney's office in January as a criminal law investigator, with the condition I'd be hired as an ADA, assistant district attorney, if I took and passed the New York bar exam, which was given in March. The New York bar exam is given twice a year, once usually around February or March. Then it was March, now I think it's February, and once in the end of July. I couldn't take the July exam because I had to go right into the service a week after I had graduated. So that was so I went into the Army, and then when I came out, I still had this obligation. I had an 8-year commitment from ROTC. That was a commitment back then. So I had to find a reserve unit. Well, they found one for me very quickly, and within a few months of my being discharged from active duty, I was assigned to Fort Totten and that transportation battalion I told you about, and later on the company in '75, the 237 maintenance company that I was sent down to be their company commander. So things moved quickly. They really did for me. And I never expected, Shelby, after my obligation was going to be up after 8 years, that I would stay for another 25, which is what I did. I stayed for 33 years. And I loved every minute of it. And when I only left, Shelby, because you can only serve so many years commissioned service. And I had reached my maximum. So they have what's called an MRD date. It means mandatory retirement date. So my mandatory retirement date was July of 2006. And that ended. When that came, I knew I had to leave. But it was a wonderful career. I had a memorable retirement luncheon that my unit, the 53rd Troop Command Headquarters, gave me, where they had more general officers come to that retirement luncheon than I had ever seen, my own retirement luncheon. And I was very, very touched and flattered. My wife Irene was with me. My father-in-law, Claude Miller, who was my Irene's dad, he was a sergeant major in the Marine Corps during World War II and Korea and Vietnam. He was a career Marine who had spent 27 years in the Marine Corps. He came up from Florida where we had been retired. So it was really wonderful to have him there as well. My own dad passed in 1994, and my grandfather 10 years before that in 1984. Although I have a feeling if they could have been there, they would have been very, very proud. It was a great tribute and a great day. So and I kept active. I'll just do this, take one last thing and ask you the next question. When I got out of my active service, I spent a lot of time at the 7th Regiment Armory, the Park Avenue Armory, beautiful building, Shelby, on 66th and 67th Street on Park Avenue in Manhattan. And I was assigned there for many years. I was very fortunate when I was in the Army National Guard. I think I told you every Tuesday night, I would have my headquarters night there and have like a legal aid clinic. Soldiers would come up to me. They'd make appointments to see me at night, and I'd see them there at the Armory. I had an office there, and that's where I drilled, where I would go for my weekend drills to that Armory. It's a beautiful building, probably the most beautiful armory in the world. Really, it's absolutely magnificent, built with private funds. And it was the 7th Regiment Armory, and I became part of the 7th Regiment by serving in that armory. I became the president of the veterans of the 7th Regiment the following year in 2007, and I'm still the president of the veterans today, of the veterans of the 7th Regiment. In fact, that coin I gave you, the commemorative coin, Shelby, that's our commemorative coin. And I don't know if I sent you my last newsletter, Shelby. I don't know if I did that. I will if I didn't. I had a newsletter come out just before Memorial Day of upcoming events, which I would certainly like to invite you and anyone you'd like to bring to one of our events. We have a Veterans Day event at the Armory where we commemorate Veterans Day on November 11th. We have a New Year's Day reception, which is a tradition where the regiment goes back to the 19th century, that the regimental commander would invite the soldiers and their families every New Year's Day for punch and cookies to the armory, and soldiers would come and they dress in their finest uniforms. They bring their wives or significant others and their children, and they would come, and it was a lovely, lovely reception. The colonel would greet everyone and wish them a happy New Year. I've kept that tradition going, and we have a New Year's reception from 12 to 3 on New Year's Day, which is really a delightful event at the Armory. We have lunch for everyone that comes, and we have a special punch that we have for our guests that we invite. So it's something, a tradition I kept alive. And being president of the veterans keeps me close to the military, because I'm able to get involved still with active duty soldiers. We have an active duty unit still at the Armory, which carries our lineage, our heritage. They're called the 53rd Digital Liaison Detachment, and they carry the colors of the 7th Regiment, the battle streamers. The 7th Regiment goes all the way back to 1806, so it's one of the bedrock units of the United States Army. And they fought in the War of 1812, in the Civil War. The 7th Regiment was like the West Point of the Union Army. All of their soldiers were tapped as officers in other regiments throughout the states that fought on the Union side. So the 7th Regiment had a great history there. And then in World War I, they helped break the Hindenburg Line, which was really led to the defeat of the Axis of Germany and the Axis powers, and a peace treaty was signed. Germany sued for peace. It was the 7th Regiment, then renamed the 107th Regiment during World War I service, which broke the line, which led to led to the collapse of Germany and the peace treaty in 1918. And then they also were involved in World War II. They were activated for World War II as well. So it is a great military history there. Which as president of the veterans, I try to keep going. But you have to come to the Army one day, Shelby, with any of your Girl Scouts you'd like to bring with your family, and I'd give you a little tour of the building. I think you'd find it very interesting.
Yeah, well, and if my grandpa was here today, I would definitely bring him to the armory.
Oh, you would enjoy that, Shelby. You would enjoy that. But go ahead, Shelby. I don't want to talk too long. You ask me whatever questions you have. I got all the time in the world.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, when your training was completed, what was your rank?
When I completed my training, I was a second lieutenant. A second lieutenant, which was, that's the lowest grade you could come in as. That was my commissioning grade. I had to go to an advanced ROTC infantry camp at Fort Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania in 1972. That was really a challenge for me. I enjoyed it. I did well there. And when I was commissioned at the end of that camp, it was on August 4th, 1972, my grandfather, my mother, my father, they all came out, my grandmother, they all see me get the second lieutenant bars pinned on by the commanding general. So that was a big deal for me. And then I attended schools while I was on active duty. I went to the Adjutant General Officer Corps basic course. I had to attend the JAG course, the Judge Advocate General Corps basic course and advanced course, to get commissioned as a JAG officer, to do the branch transfer, and to be qualified to get promoted. Because you have to have certain education levels, Shelby, as you go forward to get promoted to the next grade. The Army is big on education. And by the time I completed the Judge Advocate General basic course, I think I needed that to get promoted to captain, and I had to have the advanced course to get promoted to major. I then had to go to the Command and General Staff College to be promoted to the higher grades, Lieutenant Colonel and Colonel, and I did that. So those degrees, they're right here in my office. I can't show them to you now; they're on the wall, but I have them in my office. My office has a lot of my military stuff that I'm very proud of. And I guess one of the nicest things that happened to me, Shelby, in 2016, it was the 100th anniversary of ROTC. Remember I told you I was commissioned ROTC, and St. John's nominated me for the inaugural class of the ROTC Hall of Fame, which coincidentally is in Fort Knox, Kentucky, where I did my basic training. So I was one of 300 people they selected going back 100 years. A lot of them, more than half of the people they selected have passed. So they were posthumous inductions, but I was one of like maybe 115 that were alive and present. And I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky with my wife, Irene, and my daughter, Catherine. And they got to see me inducted into the ROTC National Hall of Fame as a Brigadier General. That was a big deal for me because whoever would have dreamed that would have happened when I was going through basic training at Fort Knox, Kentucky in the summer of 1970. So 46 years later, to be in that inaugural class. And the first name they read out, Shelby, was of the first inductee was General George Marshall. General George Marshall was the Army Chief of Staff and later was the proponent of the Marshall Plan during World War II. He was the top-ranking officer of the Army in World War II, and later became the Secretary of War for the United States in World War II, and for the years after. He was like an icon in the military. That was the first name they read. And I remember sitting on the parade field with the fellow next to me. He was from Wake Forest University. And I turned to him and I said, I don't belong here. What am I doing here? General George Marshall. I mean, that was to show you the kind of people they inducted. Colin Powell was at that ceremony. General Colin Powell. He was in that first. So he was the Army Chief of Staff you know, the highest ranking military officer during during the Iraq War back in 2003. So it was a very nice thing to have, and I was glad my wife was able to see that with me and come down with me for that. So that's something I wanted to make sure I told you, Shelby. But that's on my bio. If you see my bio, it's in there. It's in there. But go ahead, Shelby. Fire away. Okay.
Where were you stationed at?
Well, because I was in the New York Army National Guard, most of our deployments were either at Fort Drum, New York in Watertown, or Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where the 101st Air Assault Division is stationed. We were for a long time linked with them. So if there was a war, we would be their backup, their support troops. So I would spend summers either at Fort Drum, New York, or Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Occasionally, I would get an interesting assignment. In the summer of 2002, I was assigned to the 173rd Airborne Brigade, which is in Vicenza, Italy. And I was stationed there that summer. It was a great opportunity for me. I got to spend a month there, and I was the filled in for the staff judge advocate, the top JAG lawyer for that post, who was going on leave. So I was like just myself. I went over there and filled in that spot. And so for a month in August of 2002, I was very busy filling in for an active duty brigade, which was really part of like the tip of the spear. If ever there was problems around the world, one of the first units sent there, they were what was called the Rapid Deployment Force, was the 173rd Airborne Brigade, because you could fly them anywhere, they could parachute in, and they were armed to the teeth. You know, they were really a very good fighting force. So that was a great opportunity for me. I fit in very well on the staff. I taught a lot of classes. I have to tell you, to the JAG officers that were there that I had to supervise, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. They would send me to other places for training and other forts, but those were the most significant probably. We went a lot. I went to the JAG school in Charlottesville, Virginia. That's where the Judge Advocate General's school is located. It's on the campus of the University of Virginia, a beautiful school, right across the street from the University of Virginia Law School. So I went there for courses I had to take. There was a course being a staff judge advocate, another course on operational law. There was an international law course. These were 2 or 3 week courses, and I would go down to take them at various times during the year. I would save up all of my vacation time and use it for the military, for my firm, because I didn't want to abuse it, but I still wanted to stay active in keeping up with my army training and my army education. So I would do that. And there was a workshop they would hold every spring in April. I went to the first one in 1998, and my wife Irene came down with me with our daughter Catherine, who was only 5 then, but she would come down with me. We'd stay in a motel. So during the day they could do something while I was at school, and then at night we could be together. And Charlottesville is a beautiful place. And as I mentioned to you, I went down there for my graduate degree in 1969, 1970, between college and law school. I was at the University of Virginia. So I'd like going back there. So that was another thing I did. But so those were the main places, Shelby, that I could think of right now. It's interesting.
You don't have to wait, say that again.
I'm sorry, dear.
No, I was just about to say another question.
Go ahead, Shelby. You fire away.
I mean, you don't have to answer this if you want to, but did you have any friends that were lost in the war?
Did I have any what?
Friends that were deployed and lost their lives in the Gulf War. You don't have to answer if you want to.
I'll answer it. The answer is no. The Gulf War ended very quickly. It was over in a matter of 100 hours, three days. It was the overwhelming force. That was what the doctrine was at the time. I think General Powell was the Army Chief of Staff, and General Schwarzkopf, Norman Schwarzkopf. He was the commander of the troops on the ground in Iraq in 1990-91. It started in 91. The mobilizations started in like November of 1990 when Iraq seized Kuwait, and then the buildup started. And by February of 91, there was American forces were overwhelming, and they had over there, and the war lasted a matter of days. So, and the casualties were under 100 for the United States. So I did not know anyone who got wounded or was killed in action there. So no, that was nobody. Thank God for that. Yeah.
What's one thing from your service that you will never forget?
Well, I think the friendships I made with people that from all walks of life that I still keep today and treasure today. Shelby, the best friends I have are people I met in the military, and I've kept those friends, and I'm close to them. Fellow JAG officers, some of them have done very well. Two of them were on one of the highest courts in New York State. Judge Randall Lang was the presiding judge of the Appellate Division, 2nd Department. I served with him in the JAG Corps in New York in the Army National Guard. And Judge Joe Maltese is on the Appellate Division now. He was a Supreme Court judge and became an Appellate Division judge. He's sitting on the court now, very close to him. Colonel George Antis, rather, was a federal court judge, and he sat in the Southern District, was the chief magistrate of the judge of the Southern District. I'm very close to him. I kept in touch with him. These are all people I served with in the military, and I was blessed to have served with very close, very good commanders. One of them, General Jack Jones, was the first African American commander of the 107th Regiment I was telling you about, the Armory, the Park Avenue Armory. He was the commander in the building and of the regiment, and he was probably my most favorite commander that I served under. I was his JAG, which means I was his lawyer between 1989 and 1993. I served with him for almost 5 years. And then later on, when he became the Troop Command commander and was promoted to Brigadier General, I went up there as his JAG as well for another couple of years before he retired in 1998. And then I stayed there. Remember, I was promoted to colonel in 96. I was assigned to the troop command, and I got to stay there for a couple of years with General Jones. So I met a lot of really wonderful people in the Guard, and that's why I got involved with the Veterans Organization, Shelby. And I still get calls today from soldiers. It's amazing. They still call me today. They got various questions, legal answers, legal issues, and I never not take their call. I never not want to help them. It's kind of the way I was wired for service, wanting to give back. And these people, put themselves on the line by serving their country. And my job was to make their jobs as easy as possible and to support them so they didn't have to worry about family problems, help their families with various situations. If they got into disciplinary trouble, make sure they came out of it, that they weren't hurt permanently, so they were able to go on with their military career. If they had family issues at home, try to solve that. Job issues, because a lot of these soldiers, they were part-timers like me, so they had a civilian life as well. But yet, if the balloon goes up, you got to go. I mean, that's the deal. You don't get to pick and choose where you are deployed, Shelby. And it could be a federal war like the Gulf War that the country's in, or it could be a state activation. When 9/11 happened, and Shelby, I sent you the article I wrote for the Queen's Bar Bulletin. If you get a chance, read it. I think you'll find it very interesting. one of my proudest periods of service was during 9/11, because I was one of the first responders. The 53rd Troop Command was called to duty the first 15 days after 9/11, and to help run the security and help support the recovery effort down there. We had all the perimeter security. You didn't know what was going to happen next, whether it would be another attack, whether it be another terrorist trying to infiltrate the armories or try to infiltrate Ground Zero. So it was a lot of responsibility, and I was on virtually 24 hours every day, but it was important for me to be there. I really wanted to be there, Shelby. Wanted to serve to help the country, and that gave me a chance to do that. So my 9/11 service in particular, Shelby, it meant a great deal to me, and the soldiers I served with then. And then when that was concluded, some of them went over to Afghanistan, and I had to help get them ready as well. So that was a big deal. This article, which I wrote for the 20th anniversary, a friend of mine was at the Troop Command, Ron Sarnopoli, was writing a book about the first responders from the Army National Guard, which I was one. I tell you, that very first day we were activated, and he asked me to put down my thoughts as the JAG officer for that headquarters, the problems we had to deal with. And I sat down and I wrote I have a longer piece that I wrote, but for you, I sent you the shorter one. I thought you would the abridged version, which I thought you might find interesting. So you might find some interesting things in there. If you have any specific questions, ask me about it. I won't go into it unless
Okay.
you want me to tell me about
Okay. Wait, can you describe what you had to do after 9/11 happened?
Was I what there?
Can you describe what you had to do after 9/11
yes.
happened?
Sure. Right away, soldiers they were activated right away. So they had to report for duty on that afternoon, September 11th. The activation order came up. Some of them had to leave their jobs right away. They were concerned about their families, how they were going to get supported, that we weren't going to be online for pay for some time. You don't get paid right away if you're a part-timer and you're activated. How are their families going to survive? Would their employers, keep their jobs for them? Because we didn't know how long we were going to be activated for, and what rules of force were going to be in effect. I mean, the soldiers were carrying weapons because they were down at Ground Zero. They had loaded weapons with them. They didn't know, if another terrorist was going to try to come in and try to hurt them or other people. So they had to know what the rules of engagement were, and I had to instruct them on that. I wrote memos about the rules of engagement, about the use of force, how what force, the level of force you were authorized to use, and how deadly physical force was only to be used if their lives were actually in imminent danger. Otherwise, we were there to assist the civil authorities. So the police officers were down there. They were the ones to go ahead and make arrests. We could detain them. We could detain someone if we thought a crime was being committed, but the actual arrest had to be made by a police officer, because we were there as an aid to civil authorities. So it was an interesting time for me. I had to handle a lot of problems for personal issues for soldiers that suddenly found themselves in a very not the best environment. You were down there, the toxic gas and the smells. I wore a gas mask every day I was down there, and probably why I didn't get sick. But a lot of people who didn't and were working on that pile, they weren't wearing a gas mask. I would virtually say almost every one of them got some type of cancer, and a lot of them died. So it was a very dangerous time. Not only did 2,977 die at the towers, but a lot more died from the cancers that they got from the toxic substances from working down there. And my people had the perimeter all around the trade center. So every day I would go down to the trade center. I'd visit them, see how they were doing at their different stations, and the troops were housed they were sleeping at the Javits Convention Center because they were on active duty, and they were in 12-hour shifts they were doing. So I would visit the Javits Center, make sure they were okay. There was a lot of interesting stories. One thing that I felt good about was that I wanted to serve. I wanted to be there. I wanted to help. And this was my vehicle of being able to do that. I reported in to duty that afternoon, and the next day I was down at ground zero. And there were great stories about that. I had a quick aside. If you got a minute, Shelby, I'll tell you a quick story. I had a client, I was doing a deposition at my law firm, was in the Woolworth building, which was 2 blocks from the World Trade Center. And my office was on the 45th floor of the Woolworth building. Shelby, I looked at the 2 towers, looked right at them every day. They were there, right in front of me in the Hudson River. So I had a client, a very disabled woman. She had gone in for a back surgery, and the doctor had damaged her spinal cord, and she was paralyzed on half of her body. A woman in her 30s, early 30s, but she had gotten married after this had happened and was pregnant, 5 months pregnant. At the time, her and her husband had moved to Florida. They came up to do their deposition, which is the examination before trial. And I was, representing them in my office. And there were 2 lawyers there questioning, one for the hospital, one for the doctor, and a court reporter. And at 5 o'clock, they hadn't finished it yet. They had started at 10. This had taken all day. And I knew they were getting close to the end. There couldn't have been much more left. So I pleaded with them to stay and implored them not to make her go back to Westchester, where she was staying with her brother in White Plains, and then was going to leave the next day to go to Florida, the next night to go to Florida. Otherwise, she'd have to come back the next morning, September 11th, and go through and have the exam continued. Well, they agreed to do it, and they stayed another couple of hours. By 7:30, she was done. I had gotten her in a cab with her and her husband to go back to White Plains. The office was taking care of that. And I came back to my office, and I looked, and the last thing I could see, the sun was setting behind the Trade Center, like in between the two towers. It was really, who would know that would be the last time I would see that sight. But the point of the story is the next day, she would have been at my office at 9 o'clock to continue the exam, the deposition, just at the time the first plane had flown into the North Tower. A second plane came in, about 20 minutes later, went into the South Tower. So I would have had a nightmare getting her out of there, because we were within the power grid of the Trade Center. So there was no power at all to our building. The Woolworth building lost all power, along with with that whole grid that the Trade Center was in. So God was looking out for us. I was, and the fact that I was not there, I was home when the call came, and I was able to go to my unit and start my service with the New York Army National Guard. So that's a quick story. It's in the article, but if you wanted to read it, it's in there.
Yeah, and there's a documentary out there called "A Live Days Home from Iraq," and one of the veterans on the documentary said 9/11 was the reason he joined the military. Yes,
a lot of people felt that way, Shelby. A lot of people felt that way and enlisted, because it was the worst terrorist attack ever to happen on our shores, worse than Pearl Harbor. More people died in 9/11 than died in Pearl Harbor, the start of World War II. So it's a terrible thing, and that meant a lot to me to be able to serve and do my mission as a JAG officer. I have to tell you, when I was leaving to get in my car to drive, I had my uniform in the duffel bag. It was about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the afternoon on September 11th to go to my unit. My wife, Irene, said to me, "Now, Tom, do this right. Don't screw this up. This is important." I said, "You're right, Irene. I'm going to be on duty." I packed my sleeping bag, and for the next few nights, I was sleeping outside my office, at the 53rd Troop Command headquarters, and then during the day, I'd be down at the center at the Trade Center. So it was important service, Shelby.
Wow. Were there any medals or awards that you received?
Yeah, Shelby, I got some pretty good awards, some pretty high awards. The highest being the Legion of Merit, which, you know, the lapel pin I was telling you about. That was is the highest peacetime award that a soldier can receive. The only medals higher than that are the combat awards, the Silver Star, the Distinguished Service Cross, and the Medal of Honor. But outside of that, the Legion of Merit is considered a real testament to a soldier's career. That was the highest award I received. I was given that the day of my retirement. It was kept as a surprise for me until my retirement luncheon in July of 2006. So that meant a great deal to me. I also received the Conspicuous Service Medal from the state of New York, which is the highest military award other than a valor award that the state can give a soldier. That meant a lot to me. That was also given to me at my retirement. I received the Army Commendation Medal, 6 of them, for service during the course of my career. That's a distinguished award given, and I received it at 6 different times. So you wear one medal and you wear these oak leaf clusters that you put on the medal or on the ribbon to indicate how many awards you had. And I received a number of other awards, the Meritorious Service Medal from the Army. That meant that was also a very high award under the Legion of Merit, but higher than the Army Commendation Medal. Yeah, there were a number. New York State had given me the Medal for Meritorious Service, the Medal for Military Commendation Medal, the Medal for Humane Services, the Medal for Aid to Civil Authorities. These were for the state activations. I remember I told you I was activated for the prison guard strike. I was activated for a big ice storm upstate in 1998. I was, of course, activated for 9/11. There were other deployments that we had that I was activated for, and I also received a number of service ribbons. I have the overseas training ribbon that I received for my assignment to Vicenza, Italy, when I was sent there. And you know, for marksmanship, I had the expert M16 medal that I wore on my work uniform when I was a younger officer for my training, my expertise shooting the M16 rifle. So there were a number of awards I had gotten, but the 2 most significant, the Legion of Merit, I received at my retirement, and the Conspicuous Service Medal from the state of New York. They probably stand out the most, but they were given for my whole career, Shelby. You know, so that was it. But I had like various assignments, Shelby. I was the chief trial counsel for the state of New York Army National Guard for a number of years. I was the chief trial counsel. That's the prosecutor. I did that for a number of years. I was the senior Army judge advocate and the acting state judge advocate for a short time. And then my favorite post was my last post, the staff judge advocate for the 53rd Troop Command of the New York Army National Guard. That was a very significant assignment because I had so many units all over the state that came under our umbrella, and I was responsible for. So I would travel a lot. I got to see a lot of New York State, Shelby. I went to Buffalo. I went to all the way out west. I went to Erie, which is on the west, on Lake Erie, New York. I went to Lockport in the southern tier, James Port. I went to Jamestown rather, and Olean, New York, Fort Drum, all over New York, Saratoga, Rochester, Syracuse, Utica. We had armories in all these cities, and they were at one time or another I had units I was responsible for. So I would get in my car and I would drive around, drive around New York State. It was a good thing to do, I have to say. Good thing to do. I really enjoyed it. Got to meet a lot of wonderful people there, and I've kept friends with, a lot of them over the years. So that was also a significant thing. And the great thing is, I said, Shelby, I was able to do this while having a civilian military career. I was able to do both. So that was good.
I just trying to see. Did you went to ceremonies honoring veterans like yourself?
I do. And I lead some of them. At the 7th Regiment Armory, we have a Memorial Day service that is very important. We march to our monument. We lay wreaths there. I always prepare a Memorial Day speech. I try to bring a guest speaker in, and I wear my uniform that day. And also we serve lunch to our guests on this past Memorial Day, and we do it on the
Wait, you froze.
Sunday, Memorial Day week. We had about 85 people. That's at the Park Avenue Armory. Oh, my internet connection is unstable, I'm seeing. Oh,
Yeah,
okay, all right.
yeah, at one point you froze for a minute.
Oh, okay. Am I okay now?
Yes, you're okay.
Okay. I'm also on the board of the Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Association. And on Memorial Day, we have a Memorial Day observance at the Soldiers and Sailors Monument, which is in Riverside Park on 89th Street. I announce all these different veterans organizations as they present wreaths at the monument. That's a big organization. I'm involved in there. I'm on the board of directors there. And then, of course, the Veterans Day and New Year's Day, major events. And I honor that. I've told you about the breaking of the Hindenburg Line. We have a dinner, Shelby, in October to honor every year to honor the anniversary. The battle took place on September 29th and September 30th, 1918. The breaking of the Hindenburg Line. It was considered, as I said, the unbreakable line. And it was my unit, the 7th Regiment, renamed the 107th Regiment for World War I service, which broke that unbreakable barrier. And it was really kind of the high point in terms of military valor. It was like the crown jewel of our military history, was what the 7th Regiment did. And these were New York soldiers. They were part of the 27th Division, which was the New York Division in World War I. And we were the 7th Regiment was the tip of the spear for that. So that's important. I have a dinner that I brought back, and we have it at the Armory on a Saturday night to honor the memory of those that fought in that battle. And I always give a little speech then and try to have a sit down dinner so the soldiers, the members, can bring their wives or significant others or family members to the Armory. And it's a very nice event, really is. So the military history, very important. We keep that tradition. The tradition is, keeping it alive. In my newsletter that I'll make sure I send you if you didn't get it, it has like the calendar of all our events, so you can see what we're doing. And I speak at various veterans events. I'm asked to do that. We commemorate women soldiers that fought in World War I, that served in World War I, I should say. There's a grove of trees. We do it just before Veterans Day. There's a grove of trees park in Central Park at the 69th Street entrance, which is dedicated to women soldiers. A lot of them were nurses who served in World War I, and we have a ceremony there. And that's become getting more and more attention. And I'm very active in that. A couple of years I've spoken there. This year the governor came, Governor Hochul. She was there for that. So that's a very important. That's in the newsletter too. You'll see that in the newsletter. So yeah, and I'm also part of the 42nd Infantry Division Veterans Association, and we have a ceremony at the 42nd Division Monument, which is in Nassau County every year, and I always participate in that as well. So that's another thing we do, Shelby. So
wow.
Yeah, veterans organizations, American Legion posts. I'm active in my American Legion post. That's very significant. My church, Shelby, I do a field of honor for the veterans who've served in my parish, St. Paul the Apostle in Brookville. We have a ceremony around Flag Day, which is June 14th. And we dedicate this field of American flags, and people can, and we have a program, it goes in the church bulletin, where people could, for $20, they can dedicate a flag to their loved one who served or is serving now. And I read their names in a ceremony that we have when we dedicate the field. And our pastor, Monsignor Pareda, usually do it after the 5 o'clock mass on Saturday, just before Flag Day. And we dedicate the flags there. So it's, and I always put a flag up for my grandfather, Thomas Principe, World War I, my father, Anthony Principe, World War II, and my Irene's parents, her parents were both in the Marine Corps in World War II. That's how they met. Irene's parents, Sergeant Major Claude Miller, and his wife Bernie Miller. She was a Marine, a woman Marine who trained pilots how to get out of planes that had a ditch in the water, because they were in the Pacific Theater in World War II. The Marines. That's where they served, and she taught them how to get out of planes and keep themselves alive. So we always dedicate a flag to her, and to my old speech professor at St. John's University, Dr. Tom Finotti, who was my director when I did that play I was telling you about, the birthday party. It just was he had a lot of faith in me to give me that lead role. I never lost touch with him over the years. He died only last year. My wife and I would visit him, and we'd take him to dinner. And in fact, we saw a play on Broadway, maybe 6 months before he died. I took him to see a Harold Pinter play of all things, called Betrayal. It was a great play. He had such a good day at that. And he was having a hard time getting around at the end, but we took him to dinner after that, and it was really nice to see. So veterans organizations and active in veterans events, very important to me, Shelby. Yep.
Yeah, there was a veteran organization that I contacted to get in touch with World War II veterans. It's called the Best Defense Foundation.
Oh, great. That's good. There aren't too many of them left, Shelby. So they got to be in their 90s now. The World War II vets.
Some I met are in their early hundreds.
Early hundreds. There you go. Boy, that's something. I know the last Medal of Honor recipient from World War II just died just the other day. He was the last one who was living. So yeah, that's very important. Very important that we remember as a country, because so few people serve now, Shelby. Less than 1% of the families in America have somebody in the family that's serving in the military. Less than 1%. That's not a good thing. We're getting detached from our past, our history, because our freedom is never secure. It's always got to be defended and protected. And we have some big adversaries in the world, namely China and Russia and Iran, North Korea. I mean, these countries want to do us harm. We need a strong military and because without them, they'll impose their authoritarian order on the world. And freedom, as Ronald Reagan said, is a very precious.
Wait, you froze again.
Thing, and it could be good generation if it's not defended and protected. I broke up. Can you hear me now again? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I guess maybe I'm sorry. Okay. Go ahead, Shelby. I don't want to get on my soapbox.
That's okay. I think that was all my questions.
Oh well, great, Shelby. I'm glad you. I forgot to say this. I was a Boy Scout.
You
also.
were?
I reached Star. I was the rank of Star Scout, and I enjoyed that. It kind of got me used to camping outdoors. We went to 10 Mile River Scout Camp. I did that all through my grammar school years into maybe my first year of high school. I did that.
Wow.
But then I kind of graduated out of the Scouts, and that was it. But I enjoyed that. So when I heard the Girl Scouts, Shelby, I wanted to help you in any way I can. And
yeah,
you follow up with me at any time, Shelby.
Yeah, I am a World War II veteran that I who became a children's book author, he told me he was a Boy Scout too.
There you go. You see, no, that meant a lot to me. I remember my merit badges. I had one for weather, which I thought was really unique. I got them for swimming and for campfires and cooking. I remember doing all that, but I got one for weather, and that was great. I really enjoyed it. I always liked the weather, following the weather. So I got a merit badge for weather. I don't think there are too many of those around. But I had my sash. You wear your sash with your merit badges on that. That meant a lot to me. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I admire you being in what are you in the Girl Scouts? What was it, the rank, or what position, grade you're in, or?
Well, the level of Girl Scouts is based on the grade you're in. So since I'm in June on the 15th, I finished my junior year. I'm a senior now, so I'm still an ambassador, but this is my final year of being a Girl Scout.
I see. Oh, that's wonderful. And where do you go to high school, Shelby?
It's a private school called Winston Prep.
Winston Prep. Great. Where is that located, Shelby?
It's located downtown on 17th Street.
So you're in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Well, Shelby, you're welcome to come by and visit me in my office. I'd love to show you my office. I got a lot of interesting things on the wall, a lot of military stuff on the wall. So that's why when we initially set this up, I said, well, let me invite you to my office if you'd like to come, and you could see my, a lot of my the awards, a lot of my military awards I've kept in my office. But if you ever wanted to come down to visit, you let me know. You have my number, my contact information. We can grab a sandwich. We can come up here, and I could show you my law office. You can introduce you to some of my partners. I've been here 33 years, Shelby. It's hard to believe.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a long time. So, but I still enjoy doing it, and I'm still working. I tell you, I spoke to this legal outreach program at St. John's this morning at 9 o'clock, and these were 8th and 9th graders, and they're in this program that St. John's Law School runs, and they take them. They try to educate them and maybe thinking about being future lawyers and going on to law school. I was their first guest speaker today. So it's been a busy day between you. I was thinking of you in the afternoon and them in the morning. So it was good.
Wow. So like I said, thank you for your service in the military.
You're welcome, Shelby. It was a pleasure talking to you, dear. My pleasure to salute you. And I'll email you my newsletter. I want you to have that, okay? And
Okay.
if you have any follow-up questions, don't hesitate to call me. Do you have my cell phone if you needed to reach me?
Yes, I think I remember seeing it.
That's right. Right. If you need me to reach me, call me. If I can help you in any way, Shelby, I'm delighted to do so. And I'd love to see whatever it is you had prepared for your Girl Scouts based on this. I'd be honored to have a copy. So just keep that in mind too. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Shelby. Well, nice to talk to you. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And if
You
there's
too.
any last minute questions, you're good.
No, I'm good.
Okay, Shelby. Have a nice weekend. Where are you calling from? It's a beautiful picture behind you. I see
Thank you.
that.
It's a replica of a painting. I forgot which one.
Yeah, it looks like I'm gonna say a Matisse, maybe water lilies. It's a beautiful painting.
Thank
Really,
you.
really beautiful painting. Okay, well, good. You can see that's my behind me is where my pictures in my office. I have a lot of pictures in my office, Shelby. You can see. So, but if you come here, I'll give you a little tour. All right, Shelby.
Okay.
Have a wonderful weekend, dear. A pleasure
You
to
too.
talk to you. Okay.
I'm gonna talk to you too.
Okay. Bye-bye now.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.